The last initial campaign in the building of Notre-Dame, which lasted from 1225 to 1250, saw the erection of the towers at the northern and southern sides of the west facade, along with the high gallery between the two towers, known as the Gallery of Kings. Now, a cathedral is a living organism, and renovation of Notre-Dame began even before the church was completed, as new construction and renovation went on hand in hand for some time. In their initial construction, the flying buttresses of the nave, unlike the reinforcing wall of the choir, which aligned with the outside wall too far beneath the springing of the arches of the high vault, originally were of the double type, with the lower flyer placed beneath the roof of the tribunes. The buttresses were altered, however, beginning in 1225 to 30 by an increase in the size of the upper windows and a lowering of the roof angle of the tribunes, replacing the double with single flyers. We know this because of the archaeological observations of the great renovator of France's cathedrals, Eugene-Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, who found the traces of 5-spoked rose windows on the tribune levels, windows that were later enlarged to the elongated lancet type. Note the difference in the window arrangement of the transept crossing and the nave. Here is the type of window arrangement, lancet and ocular, before 1225, and there we see the arrangement after 1225. In the 13th century, chapels opening upon the ambulatory were constructed between the contreforts, that is, between the reinforcing vertical piers of the nave. The original spire was added. Gargoyles appeared for the first time in the 1230s. Note that these are not the elaborate fantasy-like gargoyles designed by Viollet-le-Duc and put into place in the 19th century, as seen in this beautiful photo of a stormy Paris sky. No one knows exactly what functions gargoyle serves. Were they intended to keep evil spirits away? Were they meant to scare worshippers as they entered the cathedral? The gargoyles remain, however, a constant source of fascination, as we see in this image of Yale's Harkness Tower, built in the 1920s. To return to Notre-Dame, Jean Ravis, master architect of Notre-Dame from 1318 to 1344, completed the radiating chapels as well as the tribune windows and single flying buttresses on the northern side. Notre-Dame has evolved through the centuries. In the 17th century, Louis XIV faced the interior of the choir with marble neoclassical columns, as we see again in David's coronation of Napoleon. The end of the 18th and beginning of the 19th century was a period of great transformation and destruction of France's cathedrals. Architect of the Pantheon, Jacques-Germain Soufflot, received instructions from the government to enlarge the main entrance, and he destroyed the trumeau, the post in the central door of Notre-Dame's west facade, in order to accommodate large public processions. Here we see what the central entrance of the west facade looked like before 1771. The French Revolution of 1789 saw massive destruction and pillaging. The gallery of Old Testament kings and prophets of the west facade were mistaken for the kings of France and were removed, along with the original jam statues on either side of the doors. Some have turned up here and there, the latest in 1977 during excavation for a bank building in northern Paris. They now reside in Paris's Museum of the Middle Ages, or Cluny Museum. At the time of the Revolution, the interior of Notre-Dame was sacked with the loss of many objects, like this choir screen. The Revolution of 1830 saw another pillaging of Notre-Dame, especially the sacristy, which was burned to the ground. But most of all, Notre-Dame was changed by the restoration undertaken between 1843 and the end of the 1850s by Eugene-Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, who attempted to restore the cathedral to its medieval or original state. Viollet-le-Duc rebuilt the flying buttresses, restored statuary on the façade, gargoyles and stained glass. He removed neoclassical touches inside and rebuilt the roof and especially the gutter system, along with the spire. Medieval cathedrals were painted on the inside, and Viollet developed a series of polychrome patterns that were part of his restoration. But Viollet-le-Duc was not shy in his restoration of the cathedral, and here we can see several instances of his leaving his signature upon the restored medieval monument. We see his image as one of the apostles on the roof, holding the architect's square, and here, on the north entrance of the west facade, he casts himself in the role of Adam in this depiction at the base of the Trumeau, on which the Virgin holds the child in a scene of the fall. Violet's restoration of Notre-Dame was part of a great return to the Middle Ages after the French Revolution of 1789. The revolution was kind neither to the French king's identification with the classical past, the neoclassical aspirations of the Ancien Régime, nor with the medieval alliance between church and crown. Between 1789 and 1793, revolutionaries sacked and pillaged France's cathedrals, and for the first decade of the 19th century, churches were neglected, falling into disrepair. The restoration of monarchy, however, after the exile of Napoleon I in 1815, brought with it a return of interest in the Middle Ages as part of the great wave of nationalism and focus upon the indigenous past, one component of which was the discovery of medieval architectural, historical, and literary monuments, along with medieval languages and literary and historical texts. In our next time together, we shall explore the varied and intricate sculptural programs on the outside of Notre-Dame in Paris.